Yeah, so it's recording started. Okay, welcome everyone to
MuleSoft Surat Meetup chapter.
meetup number 61. Today's topic is Anypoint platform audit logs using Splunk integration. Yeah, next slide please. So let's start with safe harbor statement. Both speaker and hosts are organizing this meetup in individual capacity. We are not representing our organizations here. It is for learning purpose. We as organizer or present responsible
Solution will work.
for your business solution. This is not any promotional activity.
Next slide, please.
Housekeeping. Recording of this meetup will be uploaded to you within 24 hours, but this
Then
will be by Monday. Questions can be asked in on mic.
Session.
It's fine. More interactive. Please give us feedback after the meetup so that we can know what new topics you are looking for or how we can improve more. Yeah. So, Jiten Bafna and myself, maybe. Next slide, please. Today we have speakers Gopal Bhumiredi. Yeah, Gopal, please carry on.
Thank you, Nitish. Hello, all. Good morning. Hope all are doing good. So my name is Gopal Bhumiredi. I'm working at DXC Technology as a senior MuleSoft developer. I'm having 11 years of experience into integration only from last 3 to 4 years working in MuleSoft. So before into Oracle Server OSB, so completely into integration knowledge only. So as we discussed earlier, Nitish told, right, today we're discussing about Splunk integration with audit logs. Okay, so we'll discuss about what is audit logs and what is audit log query API, what is the solution we have, and then we'll jump into demo. Audit logging. So everyone knows we have a logs, right? So like application logs, audit logs, and especially if any security team, auditing team want to do any audit, so as an enterprise or as an enterprise, so many systems involving and working for different work, right? So and security team should verify whether that it is going in a right direction or wrong direction, or anything happening. So if they want to check, so if they want to do any audit, so they need some data, right? So the data here we have in the form of logs. So and in MuleSoft, we know everyone knows we have a logging and where we are doing logs, right? So similar way, an application logs we are doing it. So here audit log, what is audit log means that changes made by users in the Anypoint platform, okay, or logged through audit logging services. So so right from the beginning, who is logging into Anypoint platform? Is a right user is logging, or is a disabled user is logging? And when you create a spec, right, if we do RAML creation, who did that, when it published, what actions they did in the exchange, and what policies they applied, and what kind of actions they did in the runtime manager for the particular API. Okay, so as you mentioned here, so it is keep track of all users who have interacted with the particular objects, and that is captured with a timestamp, and it is providing way of a querying mechanism to get the logs. So whenever we are logging in, when we're doing some certain actions, right, so those are captured, and it is captured by the Anypoint platform, and those logs is given to us as a API, so we can use that and get that into our local or whatever way we can do, and then further we can make an analysis on that. So to get the logs, so user should have administrator permission or audit log viewer permission. And here we could see that business group aware means that you'll see the logs that are relevant to their own business group. I hope everyone knows that what is business group, how it is segregated in every project. So this will be the documentation from the audit log query API. So when you go to MuleSoft documentation, I've given this link here. Okay, so you can log in and you can see what is the short description here, like they're mentioning, like provide a number of endpoints for querying the data associated with the platform objects. So here we could see a lot of endpoints here. Okay, so for more knowledge, we can go through this API, means sorry, MuleSoft documentation. So when you get the logs into your, like as a JSON response, right? So what content inside it will be, like it has, like I've listed only few, so we have more in the form of fields, right? So the time, so the timestamp when the activity occurred, or what type of product, like is it access management or API manager, runtime manager, and what kind of type of object, which on which the action is performed. Okay, what is a action, like create, update, delete. Okay, and then the name of the object, username, what is a connected app, environment, all this stuff, like we can see the and the audit log contents. And down the line I will show you the, like how it will be, like audit log query API request, and how it will be the response, so that you can correlate that. And if you look at the rate limiting policy for the audit log query API endpoint, like so based on the control plane, we have, like number of requests allowed per region, right? Control plane. Let's say that, like if that particular client exceeded the number of allowed requests, then we'll get a 503 error. So that we have to be very cautious, and we have to adjust our usage according to our need. And we have a audit log retention period, as like we have application log, like 30 days, or like 100 MB, right? So whatever the criteria it follows, the similar way for application log, we audit log retention is 6 years. And we can modify this, like max is 6 years. Just that, like if anyone want to modify that, so who is having a configuration manager or organization administrator can configure that particular retention period. Okay. Or else what you can do, means you can download your logs in local and for your analyzation, or else we can build a custom API to get the logs into external, like monitoring tool like Splunk, ELK, many other are there. Okay, today we're discussing especially about, like external monitoring tool like Splunk. Okay, so when the user want to configuration of the retention period, so they can do with a specified, like these parameters. Okay, the retention period should be between 13 to 100 days, and then must be 7 days of minimum from the current date. Okay. So prerequisites. So here, as we cannot use a enterprise for our demo, right? So we should to try from your side, we should have, like Splunk trial account, or standalone. You can install your local machine, Anypoint platform trial account. So if you use a standalone in your local, so you can run both your API and your standalone in a local, so that you can communicate. But if you deploy your Anypoint API, whatever that we're building custom API, if you deploy to Anypoint platform, so it is going to sit in the cloud, right? So it cannot communicate with your local install. So that's why today we are using Splunk cloud, sorry, trial account, Splunk cloud one, and the Anypoint platform trial. So I listed out the three processes, like here, like one is, like Splunk HTTP event collector creation, which is the one who is going to receive the logs from the Anypoint platform, and I'll go make a like code walkthrough, and then we'll execute the API. Okay, demo. Okay, so first we'll do Splunk HTTP event collector creation. Okay, so till now, any questions?
So Gopal, in Splunk, we will be seeing those audit logs getting captured, or the runtime manager, whatever transactions are happening, those logs will be getting captured.
So as name suggests, like an audit logs, any type of auditing log, like let's say user is logging, or like let's say you ask about runtime manager, the runtime manager, so we will do a lot of actions, right? You can stop the API, you can delete the API, you can start. Those actions will be captured, though, and that will be, like sitting in the Anypoint platform, that will be managed by the MuleSoft. Those logs it is given us, like through query API.
Okay, so in Splunk we can monitor like audit logs as well as suppose some logging is in debug level or info level. So those can also be captured.
Yes. So here we, as most of them already, they're doing it like, application logs. Along with that, so for security reasons, we are sending even audit logs out to the Splunk. We no need to send to Splunk. We can do it. I mean, we have an option to see in the in Access Manager itself. I'll show you here. But like, that is like a basic UI where you can see basic details, and you cannot do any monitoring, or you cannot do reporting, dashboard, alerting. You cannot do. So I'll show you here. If you go to Access Management, audit logs here. Okay.
We can see a PPT. Go back.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. I'll stop it. I'll share again. Hope you can see now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you go to Access Management, here we have a audit logs here. Okay. If you could see here, so time, product type. So in the PPT I was showing what are the objects we could see, like, elements in the when we will get extract the audit log, right? So these things, time, product type. So if you could see here, the product is Access Management, user, what the type is user, login, and what is the object. Okay. And here you could see other also, what he did. So if you go to download the log or payload, you can see here. But with this, it's very difficult to manage, right? So if you have, like, sort of logging monitoring, or either you can download it your local, and on top of the logs you can use any, like, monitoring tools or anything. So like, ELK also is an option where you can pump that particular logs to the ELK, then it can display that logs.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're talking about, like, HTTP event collector creation. So once you log into your, like, Splunk, okay, so this will be the dash like, page. You have to go to settings and then data inputs. Here you could see HEC, HTTP event collector. Okay, I already created one token here. Okay, but we'll create again now. Okay. So here, once you inside of HTTP event collector, we have to click on new token. You can pass some name. We'll say test and go to next. Here we have to select the source type. Okay. So source type I'm selecting as a JSON. You can select log4j, whatever the format of the log you have, you can select that. And so, which is important one, index. So when this index will be used, like, when you're searching your logs in the Splunk, this will be required. Okay, for now I'm just adding everything, like, history, loss, like, loss chance index, main summary, but we'll use history basically. Next. And it's showing, like, input type token, and then the name, what is the name, and whatever the allowed indexes, and say submit. So this is the token we need to capture it, and we have to use when we are calling the Splunk API. Okay. Go back to setting, data inputs. Just we have to make sure that whatever we created the API, token, it should be in an enabled state. If you could see here, it is enabled. Otherwise, what you can do is just click on here, click on the particular row, and say global settings. Okay. And then currently it's in enabled mode, right? So if it is by sometimes, like, it will be in disable mode, we have to make sure that it is in enable mode. And by default, as it is a cloud based, so enablement option for SSL is disabled. So this is the port number which is listening. Okay, and save. So now the Splunk HTTP event collector creation is done, and we'll go to code walkthrough. So this is the API what I built. Okay, so current, like, so as we know logs, right? So it's not be like, then and there we're getting logs and do something, right? It has to be a continuous process. So we want to make our APIs running continuously with a scheduled manner. So that's why we initiated with, like, created our API with scheduler, which currently I scheduled as a, like, every 1 day. Okay. Okay. And we here we have like I have listed out three flows, sub flows basically. One is like get to token one and then call the query API, and one other one for Splunk flow. So basically here importantly we have to call only two APIs. One thing about like query API, basically what we are doing here, we are getting audit logs and then sending to Splunk. So one is to get the audit logs from audit log query API and then send to Splunk. To call the audit log query API, so we have to first get the token for this API. As we know, if you call to any API, there will be security, right? So for that, we have to call the security first, accounts login API. Okay. So if I go to accounts logging API, so I'm just listing out here, username and password. I'm sending username and password. So as in the earlier PPT, the one of the slide I mentioned, to get the audit logs, right? Like the user should have either admin role or audit log viewer. There is a one role. So that role should be available to this user. Okay. And if you pass this username password to accounts login API, if you go here, so I'm just using this AML file properties anypoint platform I'm saying token resources accounts login. Okay, so anypoint.mulesoft.com/accounts login to this API. I'm sending this username and password. So this is the HTTP request. Okay, so anypoint.platform.token resource. So anypoint.mulesoft.com/accounts login API, where we're passing the token request, and we will be getting a token here. Okay, once we're getting a token here, and we've been calling the audit log query API with our received token. And then I'll show you one thing. So yeah, so we have to call the audit log query API, right? So to call the API, we should have some basic input for that, right? I'll show you how. Yeah, this is audit log request. Okay, so the request is minimum, the minimum one we have to send start date. So currently what I'm sending is only start date and end date. So I'm asking to get to only logs between this time range. Okay, and then or else you can specify the platforms also. No, I want to get only this platform. I want to get actions create or update. You can specify all these things, or else you have to I'm sending only started ended as a request to the Anypoint platform. And what is the API we're calling audit log query API is the audit log resources I mentioned, audit log v2 organizations, and this is your organization ID. I hope everyone know how to get your organization ID. Okay, we have to pass this organization ID, and then this is the /query is the one of the resource. Okay. Where we are okay, code walkthrough. Yeah. Okay, so this, if you look at here, I'm sending start date and end date. So I'm getting so for some reason I want to get Australian time zone. So that's why I'm doing this set transformation here. Otherwise, whatever timestamp you want, let's say if you get it just now function use, right, it will be UTC time frame, right? But I want to get Australia time zone. That's why I want to get this function to be executed, and then I'm sending us this start date, and then I'm doing it -1 for the day and getting the logs. Or else you can do specified timelines, whatever it is. I'm getting a current run time to last 24 hours. That's why I'm sending like this. So in your case, if you want to do something more, so you can do that. So this is a HTTP request. Okay, like an audit log resource we are sending. Okay, and then we'll be getting the logs into our hand now. Okay, so once we have logs in our hand, so we have to send these logs to Splunk. Okay, so here I'm starting a Splunk flow here. Okay, so so maybe people will get like, why use parallel for each, because we will get like 10, 20, 30 logs in a particular array log objects, right? So instead of sending one by, I mean, I can send as is a log to Splunk, but it will be like kind of a junk data to the Splunk. And so we have to like segregate like value by value. If you send as a complete payload, even difficult to manage there. That's why, so I'm sending like object by object. So how the response will look like this. Okay, this is the audit log query API response. Okay, if you look at here, so the we have data and total, two elements will be there, and an object. So the data contains actual like audit log, and the total is the number of logs we have. If you could see here, so what it is showing, the data, the first log object, the audit log is showing like platform as a core service, what is action, create, timestamp, and what is the user ID. It is coming as a null. Okay, few things, payload, and what is the name of the organization, and all these things. Okay, if I go to some different logs, right, we will have a different one. Here object type is user, and here it is showing like object name. Yeah, this is something like verification codes and something. Yeah, this is something like I initially, when I logged into my trial accounts, it is now is asking to do a email verification, right? So that's why this log is coming. Okay. Yeah, so we got the logs, and we are doing a parallel for each. Okay, and sending to Splunk here. Okay, here I'm showed the Splunk path here. If we can go to here, Splunk. Yeah, Splunk path is, this is the host name, so this will be different. This is a trial account host name, and this is the port. And services collector raw is the resource path where you be using for the HTTP event collector. Okay. Okay, that's it. So here with this, like we will get a success response whether it is the log is reached or not, and we can track that. So something we have another option also, instead of doing like an HTTP request here, everyone knows like we have a Splunk appenders, right? In your log4j.xml, you can define the Splunk appenders, and you don't need to do this also. Because of that, my trial account, I couldn't use that. So for that configuration, we can go here. Okay, if you look at the log4j.xml, here we could see log4j due to Cloud Hub log appender, right? So in a trial account, we cannot like work with MuleSoft to disable the Cloud Hub logs and enable this external logging, right? For enterprise, we can do that. That's why like I'm using HTTP request. Otherwise, you can set up this Splunk HTTP, and you can pass the like just a name, and what is the URL host name, and the token is the important one. This is the token when we did in a part of like HTTP event collector, right? And then I'm mentioning like source type I've created as JSON. Okay, and the pattern we can follow, or you can mention here appender references Splunk also. Okay, apart from that, like instead to not to use a HTTP request to call the Splunk API. So this is one of the configuration you have to do in your log4j.xml. And another one is we have to add our dependency in the repositories here. You could see here like Splunk. Yeah, I've added a like dependency Splunk logging here. Okay, and Splunk repo or artifactory, so that like when building, and if our API has to send the logs to the Splunk, so these things should be in place. Otherwise, for now, just like we can use HTTP request to send the logs to Splunk. So any doubts here in the flow? Next we'll go to like an execution. Assuming no questions, code walkthrough and then execution. So this is the code, right? So already deployed and running in my trial account. So go to runtime manager. So this is the API Mule Audit Logs API. So go here. So as it is a scheduled based, okay, either it will, I mean, currently I mentioned like, it is, I made it to run like every day, or else we can run now. Okay. 1 second. maybe what we'll do, we'll just before that we'll try to shut down any one API something. But we have logs already in place, but just to go to your API, manage applications, schedules, and run now. Just before our call, I ran. Now it queued up, and this should go like 11:34, 35. Last run, yeah. You can go to logs. See, it is going here. I think logs are at to update. Yes. So 11:34. Yes. Runtime manager. Yeah. So if you could see here, 11:34 one log, and platform is showing like runtime manager. Action is stop, and what is the user, right? So application status is stop. Okay. So this is the right sample API v1 is the one we disabled it. We can go and check back here. Sample API v1, right? Sample API v1. So these kind of like actions, whatever we are user is doing inside the Anypoint platform, those captured as an audit log, and we are getting it through audit log and query API. So now we have run the API, and the log should be in our Splunk now. So to check the logs, once you log into Splunk, we have an apps and search and reporting option is there. Okay, so as I mentioned, so index is the important one to get the logs here, to view the logs basically. I'm mentioning like index is criteria. I'm like specifying last 24 hours. So if you could see UST time now, 6:06, right? Yeah, 6:04, just 2 minutes before only our logs run. So we have logs here. What core service login, run, and yeah, here we could see, right, this is the one we did just before coming to here. Runtime manager, action is a stop. Okay, and the sample API v1 is the object name. So this way, so the logs are reaching here. Okay, so once our logs here, so I think many of them know, or like I can tell you like what is the use of Splunk now. So here we could see like analytics, data sets, reports, alerts, and dashboards. You can create reports also. Okay, based on that data, I want to create some reports. Yes, you can go ahead and I don't know in the enterprise level usage, but like just for trial I did this. Okay, I created this like failed cars, users, actions. I will show you in a dashboard those things. Alerts, so we have used in like in enterprise level. So what it will do is, so here a trial account I couldn't make it. An enterprise account, what it will do, so when we are sending a logs to Splunk, right? Let's say where is the log? Okay. Okay. So currently we saw, right, like let's say the particular API name or something, some sort of like string, if you can mention that and tell unto like let's say action is stop for the particular API, and we can set that alert in our Splunk. Okay, whenever there is an API name this and action is to stop something, then it can send an email. Let's say this is the error message, please create an alert. Okay, if you do these alerts in our Splunk, so it will, whenever this particular message reaches to Splunk, Splunk will create alert and then send an email to the required team members. Okay, so dashboards I just created just for our like just to view how it will be look like audit logs.
Gopal, sorry to interrupt. There is a question from Shiv. Can you please take that?
Yeah, I'll take just I'll show you this and I'll take it.
Oh,
Okay,
sure.
yeah. So I was mentioned like failure cause here. So I wantedly given like invalid credentials, so that's why showing here, and I disabled my user. Okay, if I go to access management and users, okay, so you could see here, this is the one more
264 to Gopal to 264 is disabled, but I tried to log in here, and that's why it's showing here the user is disabled here. And so I created one report and then added to the dashboard.
That is like actions like login, edit, stop. What is this? and then who users. Currently we have 2 users, that's 122 and then 2642. What is the question? Do we need to disable the cloud of logs processing to Splunk? Can you please brief on that scenario when we need to disable? This is Shankari, or we can call it as Shiv. The Shiv, I hope you can hear me. Yes, like, if you want to use, like, HTTP Splunk appenders, your logs automatically published to Splunk. Yes, we have to disable the Cloud Hub logs. Okay, if you just, like, use how I did it, like, HTTP request with where is this? Yeah, Splunk API. Okay, you don't need to disable it. This is a kind of API call. We're just capturing from our Anypoint query audit log query API and then sending it Splunk. But if you want to, like, I don't want to use this HTTP request mechanism. I want to just, like, this log4j setup, like, Splunk appenders right here. If you want to use this Splunk appenders, yes, you have to disable the Cloud Hub logs. Is there a way of continuous sending logs to Splunk? I understand there is a rate limited API. How much will it be useful to create alert in Splunk if not real-time data? Is there any way of continuous seeding the logs? Yes, I am, like, so as I mentioned, like, we are in a scheduler. We have used the scheduler, right? So every 1 minute or 2 minutes, but we have to make sure that, like, but like, your continuous seeding means, like, so yes, users will be continuously doing it. Even if the user is doing continuously, right? So we will have a time frame, right? So we can capture, like, every 1 day, like, last 24 hours, or, like, let's say, like, maybe if you want to get the real time data, yes, you can do that, but you have to manage the rate limiting one. How much it will be useful to create? Yeah, please.
Hi, Gopal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you mentioned there is some rate limit, right, to that
Uh-huh.
API.
Uh-huh.
So I get that you are scheduling that every day.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to do it every minute, I think it's 70 per day. That's what you mentioned, right?
Not 70. I think it will be more for the US control plane, I think. So 1 second. Yeah, US control plane is, like, allowed request per minute or per IP is 700. I think government GOV one is a 40. UE one GOV, but US control plane is, like, 700.
Okay. So per minute we can basically we can do like 10 per second. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
No. Do you have any other questions? Dashboard has showed, alerts has showed, Splunk appenders, Splunk index. Yes.
Gopal, like here for HTTP requester, you created a body wherein you fetched with based on that query, part.
Yes.
So, like if you want to fetch those details from application level logs, how would you do it in HTTP requester and through log4j?
No, if you use a log4j with the appenders, right, you don't need of you just, like, whenever you do a logger, right, okay, that will be published to your Splunk with the Splunk HTTP. If you use the Splunk HTTP appender, we can forget about the HTTP request at all.
So in case of appender, all audit logs as well as system like application level logs will go automatically.
But, like, yeah, application logs will go automatically. Even what is that, this, yeah, audit logs will go, but you should have captured, because our API is running in a different way, different API, right? So means, like, application API, we don't be running, like, this audit logs APIs will be running in separate API, as a separate API. So that will be capturing. Even let's say that if you're doing this, like, loggers here, right, these loggers also will be logged if you enable the log4j Splunk appender.
Yeah, I totally get it. Like application level logs, whatever is in log, this logger, those will be
Hmm.
captured.
Yes.
But suppose if I change the level to debug, will it automatically be captured in Splunk, or do we need to
Yes,
do
yes.
something?
It is just a matter of like how level of in depth you just want to send, and you will be specifying the log4j also info or yes. See,
Okay.
it doesn't
But
matter for
so like
Splunk, right? Splunk is
in
just a. Mhm.
Anypoint platform, what we do is there is a drop down. Like in properties, you go to settings and properties. There you uh, in debug section you enable debug
Mhm.
logs or info level log. So
Yes, yes.
do we have some provision wherein, like, suppose I do not want to print debug logs all the times, but sometimes I do want to do it. But if you do that appender in log4j file, that will always print those debug level logs.
Yes, yes. So for the it is like just a logger, right? So it won't make anything for that like what to say a difference. It is just like a collector, like event means like a log collector. Whatever you are like doing, either like info, debug, warning. So it will just capture it, whatever it is. Then it will spend to Splunk. It won't don't have any control.
Okay, okay. And in case you said, like, for audit level logs, you need to do some other configurations for log4j file. What is that?
Yes.
To
So
capture-
this is the appender.
Yeah.
Log4j, this is the one for Cloud Hub where we are disabling our Cloud Hub logs, right? And we have to
Mhm.
add this along with the Splunk HTTP configuration here. So important here is we need URL for that particular Splunk host and the token. So in our case, we created the HEC configuration, HTTP event collector configuration. We captured a token, but in the real time scenario, so the Splunk team will be different, right? So we will be requesting like what is the URL and the token and the source type also.
No, for audit level, do we add something additional to this for capturing audit level logs?
Audit level logs. No, to get the audit logs or to send to the Splunk.
Yeah, to get audit logs and send to Splunk for with log4j file.
Yes, actually, this was I've added. Actually, this is not needed in my case. I just added here to show you. Actually, this currently I'm using HTTP request. This
Mhm.
configuration is not required in my log4j. If you want to use your what to say without HTTP request, you have to enable this. Just to show it to in our demo, I just added here.
So are you saying whatever is added in log4j file that will capture audit logs also in Splunk?
Correct. If you should enable this HTTP appender, Splunk HTTP, and you should disable because our API is going to sit in the Anypoint platform, right? There you have to disable the Cloud blocks.
Okay. And is there a way to separate out, like, suppose I just want to capture application level logs and not audit level logs, or I want to capture only audit level logs and not application level logs through
So
log4j file.
correct.
So
Yeah. So
how do I
yeah.
differentiate
So
it?
here, while creating indexes, we have to differentiate. Okay. So when you are creating like data inputs, right? So one, you will create a data. So we have a HTTP event collector. So we have to create a two HTTP event collectors. One is for audit logs, one is for Splunk. Yes, even I seen that all will come to here. If I go and search here, all things will come. And initially when I was learning, even I was confused like which one is coming what, why this is coming to here. So then I got it. Like so here, let's say I created like a mule audit logs, right? You will creating one more like mule audit logs. Instead of mule audit logs, you can create like mule app logs. Okay, and your index will be different. Here I mentioned index will because it is a trial account. I don't have any customization names. But if it is an enterprise account, there you will have a option to create your own index. So that index will differentiate to you, is it like an application log or audit logs.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What is the charge of enterprise level?
Not that, I don't know. Your Splunk one, right?
Yes. Yes.
No idea on that, sorry.
Any comparison, Gopal, related to ELK, Splunk, or any other tool?
I think Splunk will have. I think it's an enterprise one. I think I for the Mule I didn't did ELK, but for WebLogic log I did maybe 4 to 5 years back I did for with the ELK actually. But I think Splunk will have a more compatibility, POM based. We our Mule projects are POM based, right? It's easy compatibility to send. That's what I think of it. Others I don't know. What kind of functionality they have between. Maybe we have to Google it.
Okay.
Yes, maybe Splunk will have more features in terms of security and the alerting mechanism as it is enterprise versions, right?
Okay.
Hi Gopal, I am here.
Yeah, hi, your voice is low. Who is that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Can you
you.
hear
Your
me?
voice.
Okay. Still low.
Yeah, you can continue, please.
Okay.
Yeah, and your voice is very low.
Hello, can you hear me now
Yeah,
properly?
it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, correct.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was asking that we are talking about Cloud Hub, but for the other kind of deployment like runtime fabric or standalone deployment, is there any other way I mean, is there any other way that we can get the runtime logs to Splunk, or we need to always use this API driven I mean API driven approach?
So you are asking where your runtime plane in your local, not in the cloud hub.
Local, yeah, yeah.
So that time, so you actually I didn't work on it, but what I think of it so if your API is run, I mean your runtime is local, so the logs will be sitting in your local somewhere
Yeah,
as a any mission, right? Either Linux, Windows, whatever it is, it will be running the mission. So we can I think there will be a way where you can get the get the logs to some maybe FTP or something, or else if it is can be yeah, what I can think of it, FTP maybe, or whatever it is, file system. Let's say it will be obviously the logs will be in your local. So somehow our API, maybe our Mule API, has to first get the logs into some place, or else in our case, in our example, scheduler is initiating, and then what you can do, I'm calling the Cloud Hub log APIs. In your case, you have to get the logs to your API, and then we have to pass. So that getting is maybe in your local to maybe you can pump to maybe SFTP, or if any API can give to that way we can get into our actual API, audit logging API, and then can pass it. Did you get it, or you want me to repeat?
no, I get it.
Okay. Maybe some kind of extra work here, because in our case, if it is a cloud hub, so MuleSoft is offering query API to get the logs. But in our case, where API is running in I mean sorry, the log sitting in our local, so we have to get somehow to that API. Then we can pass on to Splunk. I'm not sure. Maybe if Splunk have a
Yeah, I think no, I think there is other way. Just okay. I think there are some other way. There are some features that you can actually enable if your runtime plane is your local, maybe Docker or Linux, maybe runtime fabric or standalone. Mule provides you that feature that you can basically feed those logs to your Splunk automatically. You don't really need to.
yeah, maybe that will be the option. Okay, thanks for that. Any questions? Else we'll wrap up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Please tell me, Gopal.
No. I think if we don't have any questions, I think we can wrap up.
Okay, okay, great. Very informative session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gopal, for taking up at Surat chapter.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Any
Vas.
any more questions? So are we good to go? So please share your feedbacks, everyone. How was the presentation? How was the meetup? Thanks for taking up, Gopal.
No problem. Welcome. Thank you all. Thank you all participants.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Happy weekend. Bye.